My name's Tom Baker. I've been with the Olympic Project now for over 3 years. Those of you that were at the Sasquatch Summit this past year have already seen this. I've added a few things, not much, so I don't mind if you grab a drink early. But for those of you that haven't seen it, please, if you have any questions as I go through it, please let me know. All right, so the statistical analysis of Sasquatch human interaction. And so how have we gathered this information? Myself and a number of Olympic Project members brought together a number of lists, Tom Green's list, a number of lists, all together, and all told we have over 33,000 Sasquatch encounter reports. 33,000. Okay, so what we're trying to do is we're trying to use that information to say what is mentioned most often, what is the information that we can use, that is, what is the outliers that we can discount, what is the main part of the information that we want to see if we can make patterns out of. As we go through this and to gather more information on the Olympic Project website, Johnny's done an amazing job. You can see up here that this is our welcome page, and up in the right-hand corner it says contact, how to contact us, and then if you do have a Bigfoot encounter, right here, when you go to contact, it says Bigfoot report, you select that, and then it brings you to the Bigfoot report, or Bigfoot sighting report, and you can start to fill that out. And it starts out with witness name and etc. And you do not, some of these fields are mandatory, some of them are not. And here are all the things that we're looking for. Now you heard David say earlier today when we were talking about the track casting, wind direction, what's going, well, this is it. This is the list that we've come up with. We're not saying it's an all-inclusive list. We're saying it's the list that we have that we think is the best information that we need to at least gather and continue to gather as we go. So, may we contact you? Many people like to be anonymous when they do this. Name, phone number, email address, state, county, the nearest town. Because if you, what would you say if you saw something out here? We're right in between Port Angeles and Forks. We're like almost at the dead center spot here. Nearest crossroads, location info. So just, hey, I was 2.3 miles from the lake or whatever. Terrain type, and some of these are now drop-down menus, so we have standardized information coming through, because some people may call it trees, some people might call it woods, some people might call it forest. It's all the same thing to us. So we have a drop-down menu for all of these. Observation time, season, general time of day, whether it be morning, afternoon, evening, etc. Temperature, sky conditions, precipitation, wind direction, height, and then we go to the creature data, height, weight, number of creatures, hair color, hair length, eye color at night, if it was at night and if you saw anything, distance to the creature, if you felt it was a male or a female, and then the activity, and on and on and on. All right. And it does allow you to add a photo evidence if you have photo. It allows you to attach a file for audio evidence, etc. All right, so let's get into the data. So of those 33,000 reports, and what you'll notice, I want to caveat this by saying, if you hear me say over 33,000 and you look at this and you start doing the math, some of the events don't even have a year associated with them. Some of them don't have a location associated with them. So the information that we're pulling is if you think of it like a high-rise building, a lot of the floors are there, but some of the floors are empty, right? And that's what we were dealing with here. So as we go down through, you can see we start all the way at 1800 where there's a few. It peaks out at about 1977, takes a significant drop, and it's just kind of going from there. But right around 1977, does anybody know what was happening around 1977 on TV? In Search Of? Yeah, In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy. Kind of got everybody thinking about Bigfoot for maybe the first time. And a lot of sightings there. So thought that was rather interesting. So let's talk about Western State Encounter simple counts. So this is Washington, California, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, and Utah. Washington is the clear winner with 540 witnesses, or I should say encounters. 427 for California, 455 for Oregon, 258 for Idaho, 236 for Montana, and 217 for Utah. And I'm reading them because if there's folks in the back that can't see it, I want to give you the data. So that's how it falls out for the western United States. Now, something that I've added, and something that we're trying to do, is we're trying to weed out the information, like I said, that are outliers. So we're looking at the standard deviation of this data. So if we can bring all the data together, create that kind of curve that you had in high school, right? So you've got, you know, Johnny who's getting the F, and you've got Billy who's getting the A, and Sally's in the middle. And, you know, we want to weed out, you know, the outliers. So one of the ways to do that is something called a Pareto chart. And this is something that I use at work at Amazon quite often. Basically, when you're going through a business process, what you want to do, and you hear this all the time, you want to focus on the 20%, you spend 80% of your time on 20% of your problems. Has anybody ever heard that? Well, the Pareto chart figures out where is that 20%, right? Where should you be focusing your efforts? And so this is what a Pareto chart looks like. You've got Washington, California, Oregon, etc. And then you have your 20%, your top 20% of the data. Now you'll say, Tom, that's 3 out of 6, that's 50%. But what this is the top 20% above the 80% mark, if you look on the right-hand side, that's where I need to be focusing my efforts. So if I'm out there looking for Sasquatch, I'm going to be focusing in Washington, California, and Oregon. Right? Kind of makes sense. We already kind of thought that. But but it plays out with the data. So we're kind of proving our hypothesis. Or
quick question. So I'm just curious with California.
Yep.
It's almost surprising to see the statistics there.
Yep.
Did you break California down more by northern or just California?
I just went California because you know, you've got the Sierra Nevadas that go almost all the way down. So no, I did not. California is a really large state, and you're right. That's a really good point. But you know, I think most of them are in the north when you look at the heat charts or heat maps. But yeah, it's all of California. Encounters by month. You can see January, February, March, and then it spikes into the July, August timeframe and then back down. Anybody have an idea of why this data might be corrupted? You've seen my lecture before. That's when people are outside. Right, exactly. People are outside, therefore they have encounters. If people were outside during January, you might see a lot more encounters across the board. Maybe. We don't know. Maybe it's that they're more active. Maybe it's that they come down to the, you know, to a more an elevation where humans can interact with them or whatever. We don't know. But the fact is that everything I show you today, we are not sure. There's always that human and creature kind of interaction. And anytime you have that interaction that's outside of a vacuum or outside of a closed process, you're going to deal with some sort of corruption. So please take everything I'm telling you with a little bit of grain of salt, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to erase that grain of salt by using statistical analysis. All right? So this is what we've got for the months. Now, the Pareto for the months. Not in order, right? So it's order of month by greatest amount of encounters to least amount of encounters. Where do we see our top 20%? August and July. Right? So where, if I was to focus, I would focus in Washington, California, Oregon, and I would do it in August and July. That's what the statistics are telling me. All right, here we are again. And this again plays out to that data. So what we're doing is every time I do one of these different types of statistical analysis, even though it's the same data, it's giving me back the same information. What you're seeing here is you're seeing event count, lowest to highest, with a standard deviation line in there now. So if the standard deviation is above the encounter count, that means that you are outside the norm, right? So standard deviation always talks about the norm. Where is the norm in the data? So the norm is probably right here. It's not probably, it is 0. This is 0 line. So May and January are about the norm, all right? Even though they're two very disparate months, very disparate climate, things going on with the weather. But if you go above that and your encounters, the standard deviation line goes above your encounter count, that is outside the norm and something you want to pay attention to, right? And there it is. So, what did the Pareto chart tell us? It told us that July and August were where we should pay attention. So does the standard deviation analysis. Tells us July and August is where we need to pay attention. All right. So again, it just kind of further proves that idea. Any questions on this? Yeah.
Is that for standard sightings? Is that any kind of activity?
It's across the board.
Okay.
Yeah. No, there's. So I haven't broken it down by knocks or by sightings or by road crossings or anything. Yep. Let's talk about time. This is a 24-hour clock with a three-dimensional time coming out from the center. So, and this is it's counts. The spikes that you see coming out are the counts. And if you think of that round circle, that's a 24-hour clock. And the yellow line here is that standard deviation. So anything outside of that yellow circle is something we should probably pay attention to. 9 o'clock or 2100 for you military types, or 11 o'clock p.m. for you, or 2300 for you military types. 9 or 11 o'clock is where you need to be focusing because it's outside the norm. That's where we see those spikes of activity. When we break it down by the half hour, this is what we see. Again, all the way to the right-hand side, 2100, 2300, that's where those two spikes are, and they're pretty defined. One thing I will say is that when going through the data, rarely do people break it down by 30-minute intervals. They'll always give you a round time. They'll say it was around noon, about 1 o'clock, right? They won't say it was 1:37, right? I wish they would, but they didn't. So again, it just proves it out even further. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you is it's not so much a heat map, but almost like a cloud chart. So these are, the hotter the color, red being hot, blue being cold, and equal size is the number of encounters that happened in a particular county in Washington. So this is the most active counties in Washington, red being hot, blue being cold. Pierce County is by far the largest, then Lewis, Grays Harbor, Skamania, King in there with 12, and I'll talk about that in a second, Jefferson, Marion, and so on and so on. Kitsap, Jan, we're right here because of 10. So that's where we fall out when it comes to pure count. One thing when you go through this, when you go through the data, it's one thing just to look at the numbers, and for me, because I'm a little bit of a data nerd, it's really fun to look at the numbers because that's where it's like little treasures kind of pop out at you. But then when you actually read the encounter and you look at what's happening, you start to get a little bit, you get a little jaded, and believe me, I have not scrubbed this data at all. Every piece of data I get goes in these numbers because I don't know if it's true or false. But there's one of Sasquatch walking through Pike Place Market, I swear to God. So that's King County. So maybe 11 instead of 12. All right, so here's Oregon. And the reason why there's no red is because I based Oregon on the same scale that I based Washington. So you've got Josephine, Clackamas, Lane, Umatilla, Douglas, Hood River, Curry, all the way at the far lower right-hand side. Okay, so now let's take a look at our area of focus and we start talking about heat maps. And here what we'll start to see is we'll start to see clusters, and then I'm going to propose possible movement. Okay, I'm not saying that it's actually happening. I do draw yellow circles, but it's only to bring your attention to movement. Okay, so this is our area of focus. When I work there's a gentleman who lives in London that I met. We work closely together. And he and I, we decided that this would be our area of focus when he helped me create this presentation for the Sasquatch Summit. So here are the reports of visual sightings. All of them together, obviously, the red is more, blue is less, and you see this big old blob right there in Kitsap County. Woohoo! Right? Okay, so that is the Suquamish Indian Reservation, right? Did I say that right, Jan? Okay, Suquamish Indian Reservation. They had a number of reports from one of their Forest Service members there, that reservation members, that just dropped a whole bunch back. Probably it was the late 80s.
I don't know.
Okay.
Really big, David Mills.
Okay, there you go. So that's why that's so red there. So now I'm just going to.
So
Sure.
even though the
county with the most is Pierce.
Yep.
They're diffuse in Pierce County.
Correct.
So they're not shown as red as we.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, that's a really good point. Even though there are, you might see in number more, they're not as concentrated. And it may be due to population, human population forcing them in certain areas. It may be due to some other things. Don't know. So just some interesting heat maps, and I'm sorry guys, I'll try to duck down here. You've got sightings while at home, and this kind of, again, when you look at this, it makes sense when you think of it, as if you're at home, if you're away from home, where would you see them, right? I'm always looking for patterns to either validate or invalidate what we're looking at. So here are sightings while at home, sightings while driving. See how that got dispersed? Sightings while hiking, there are fewer. Not as many people get out of their cars. Sightings while camping, again, even further dispersed, now into the mountains. Reports of knocks, and Derek, help me out, why are there knocks? You told me once, I think. There's a gentleman who lives down there who gets knocks all the time.
Where?
Near Rainier. Near Rainier. Anyway,
Okay.
there's a gentleman down there who lives near Rainier who reports knocks quite often. Okay? All right, combined visuals and knocks, so we're kind of getting a whole plethora of stuff there. Okay, and now we do it by year. 95 to 99, 2000 to 2004, 2005 to 2009, and 2010 to 2016. So that's not a lot of change here, but that's the heat map. Let's take a look when we actually look at individual encounters. These are the encounters from 95 to 99, and I'm just going to go through these, and then I'm going to kind of bring your attention to something that happens as we go. All right? 2000, 2004. Doesn't look like a lot is happening. All right, but now I want you to start taking a look, and I'm sorry that I circled it in yellow, Dave. But I want you to take a look in the in that northeastern Washington corridor, and I also want you to pay attention to what goes on down here. And what I'm going to propose, and I don't know, is that there is movement, and it may be due to natural wildfires. Because I added the wildfires. If anybody's familiar with how frequent and how large wildfires can actually get, it can be pretty devastating, and it happens more often than we think. So there's your wildfires, and you can kind of see that's the wildfires from 95 to 99, and how it brackets everything up into that one area, but they're still up in that far northeastern section. Okay? Here we are, 2000, 2004. We've got pretty much a split between the two, and then obviously our normal out here in the western part of the state. And there's the wildfires. It cuts it right in half from 2000 to 2004. 2005 gets a little interesting now. If you look at those arrows, watch what happens to the encounters as we get closer and closer to 2016. You'll notice, and I'm not saying that there is any cause for this, and I'm not even saying I'm right, okay? But what I will show you is that these encounters get bunched in to western Washington. There's the wildfires. They get bunched right in there. You see that? And there's very few, if any, there's a single one here. You out here, but they got bunched in. I'll do it again. 2005 to 2009, 2010 to 2015.
Wow.
To me, that's a fairly significant movement, and I don't know why.
We've had a lot of drought conditions though, both to the eastern and central Oregon and Washington, as well as some pretty significant wildfires.
Yeah.
So, I mean, animals in general are gonna move where there's resources and water. So, what you're showing doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. There's your wildfires, push them in. Possibly, okay? Again, I'm not saying that that's what's happening. I'm just displaying it. I'll let you be the judge.
Makes perfect sense.
All right, let's talk a little bit about terrain. Terrain description, forest or woodland, river, stream, and then on down. So that kind of makes sense. I do like the fact that I see river and stream lake or pond, they're right in there at the top of where we see a lot of our encounters. Just a little bit of a heat map. So, you know, if you've got a large amount of forest, that's kind of what I tried to depict there. Not a great slide. All right, height data. Of all of the reports that I've gotten, here is the count. It's a simple line graph with a count. Everything from just over 2 feet up to 16 feet, but where the majority, 600 have a count at about 6'5", 7 feet. So you can see where people are assuming the height of Sasquatches. Weight, average weight by height. So here's the height along your x-axis and the weight along the y-axis, and then a trend line in the middle. So that tells me that trend line, and that is not a manual trend line, that's something that came out of the data, that is fairly linear, and that tells me that, you know, it kind of makes sense. So if you've got something that's, you know, I thought this one was a little odd, you're down here at like 1 to 2 feet and it's 250 pounds, that thing's got to be like cold or something. But, you know, here we are, you know, up in the 450 range. That's, you know, your 6-footer, 7-footer, 8-footer is up there at 470. Your 14-footer is up there at 600. So, yeah, kind of makes sense. Yes?
That's just assessed by the witness?
Just assessed by the witness. Yep. Oh, and if it was actually investigated, if it was verified by poll like you're talking about or whatever, then that data was replaced. So the eyewitness data was replaced by the examiner's data. Hair color, dark brown, black, brown, red, brown, gray, etc. You know, we do get a lot of sightings at night. I'm not sure how you tell the difference between dark brown, black, brown at night, but that's, if a color was ever described, that's what I've got in there. So mostly dark brown, black, or brown. Vocalization type, if people hear a vocalization. Now, one thing about a vocalization, like one night, Matt and I were out, and we were hiking right down by the clear cut, and I heard what I thought was a scream. Matt heard, he heard the same sound, called it a whoop. And that's fine, it's just, you know, when you look at this, please understand that what one person calls a scream, another might call a whoop, or a howl. What's the difference between a howl and a scream? I don't know. But when I count the words, right, I go into the data and I type in scream, like find scream, and it gives me an account. That's how I do this. So I take like all 33,000 reports plus, and I'll go to the vocalization section or the description section, and I'll type in scream, and it'll come up. So it's a simple word count is how I do it. Scream, whoop, click, howl, and cry. All right. Does anybody know what moon phase it is tonight? It is a full-on full moon, I think, tonight. Either tonight or tomorrow.
I think it's tomorrow, Sunday. It's
Okay.
I think.
So either way, it's going to be pretty bright out tonight. So we looked at moon phase. What's that? Last night it was at about 9. So 9, 10? No, earlier. I forget. So here we are. These are, so if you can imagine, people aren't thinking about moon phase when they report it, but if we ask them. So these are the numbers of the 33,000 plus reports. This is how many people reported actual moon phase. And you can see when it is darkest is when you have the most, you know, and then you've got the numbers flow around. So tonight we're looking at about half of what it might be during a new moon. What are they doing? Creature activity, walking, digging, standing, watching, running. Again, these are all word search, word finds in the data. The most common word found in all Sasquatch reports is road. All right, and that's probably because we're driving and that's when we see it. So putting it all together, where would I be if I was looking for Sasquatch? I'd be on the Olympic Peninsula in August between 9 and 11 p.m., driving down a woodland road at an elevation between 1,000 and 2,000 feet. And what will the Sasquatch be doing when you see them? The Sasquatch will be 7 feet 3 inches tall, 422 pounds, dark brown hair, walking down the Mirror Road. It may scream, and it may rock back and forth. So, that's all I've got. What kind of questions?
Cool.
I know data can be a little dry. We try to have a little fun with it. Yeah.
On your page where it was the encounters, is
Yep.
that literally all encounters, whether it be sound, sight?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Just sight.
Yeah, anytime we get a report, or anytime there's been a historical report, and we have deleted duplicates, because we've had multiple researchers go out and verify the same report. And every time we want to make sure we don't duplicate that, so we've deleted those. But yeah, whether it be somebody has reported a scream or they've seen one, it's all the same. It's an encounter.